If you're in the market for a new computer, should you make a new computer yourself or should you buy one? Today, it is time to take a look at what options you have as a computer buyer and what type of computer should you build or buy based on your needs. I am Yuki Productions, and this is PC Talk. Welcome everybody. I hope you guys are having a very good day. Today we're going to be talking about should you make your own computer or should you buy one pre-made in the shop. Why is this a topic? Because a lot of people want to get into the whole getting a computer business either for gaming or production. Mine is both because of what I do on the channel. But we need to start thinking about how would I go buy about a computer? What is the stuff that we need to know? No, a lot of things. But as one person who has built a computer in the past, let's talk about some experiences I had when doing the DIY route. And that's what we're gonna start with first. So my parents and I went to Fry's. Think they my parents we went to Fry's, and unfortunately Fry's does not exist anymore. But when it did, it was one of the meccas to go to. Obviously, there's Micro Center. So you have to do a lot of research in terms of computer parts because computer parts nowadays go expensive, especially graphics cards, and I would also say power supplies. They're more of the expensive parts nowadays, especially them graphics cards, especially the new ones, will go about $1,000. So we took a look at some parts on PC Part Picker and other sites. Now PC Part Picker is the most notable site to look for computer parts and compatibility. So I would start there. You would need to find a few parts. RAM, you need a processor, you need a graphics card, and you need some type of memory or storage. Memory is RAM, storage is a hard drive. So let's go over each part and how they go on a motherboard. And of course you need your motherboard, duh. So here is a motherboard I have. This is my old computer, so this won't be used for anything else other than tutorials. So this is a motherboard. This puppy is a crucial part for a computer. Why? This is the going inside of a case. And this puppy is like the parent. Okay, to this guy right here, the processor. That's where your processor goes. The processor is the brain of this guy and the computer. Okay? This is one of the crucial parts of a computer. The motherboard you select at store will be important, especially if you have if you have a chip. Not chips, but like one of those processors. So what type of what type of motherboard do you get? First, you also need a case. The case has a few parts to it. And one of the parts is size. Size actually matters because a motherboard has a few sizes, what they call ATX. ATX is the type of size for motherboard. And you have a mini ATX and you have an ATX big boy. And this right here is an ATX. Okay, this is ATX guy. This is an ATX big boy over here. Okay, so it's big square. It's the big boy square here, as you can see. So the motherboard and case are your first two parts to find. Motherboards usually go around $50 to $150, depending on the brand and depending on what it comes with. Some would come with Wi-Fi on board. Some come with Bluetooth on board, and some come with both on board. And because you're getting a motherboard fresh out of the box, you also get your SATA cables for your hard drives. Okay, So your motherboard is important, your case is important, and the other thing that's important is the next part on our list, RAM. RAM, shown here, right here, is going to be the part that you need. In fact, I have a sample RAM stick that I'm going to be using as part of my new PC, which is pre-built. I'll explain why pre-built is also a good route to go to. So this right here, where my finger is a RAM stick. Now this puppy, these puppies, I should say, not this one, is a very important part for a computer. All parts are important, but that one is important for running programs like OBS Studio, Streamlabs, and all that good stuff. Those help you run programs like VR chat. I'm coming back, by the way, soon. Anyway, these are required to run those programs. And depending on the size of RAM, will depend on what you can multitask with. So normally, computers are pre-built come with 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes. Now your motherboard is also important because depending on what type of motherboard it is, will support as many RAM as it can support. For example, this one supports up to 64 gigabytes of RAM. Therefore, your RAM sticks have to support up to 64. Do not go over, or else you might burn out your motherboard. Okay? So RAM usually goes from $50 to $200, depending on the size and depending on how many. Usually they come in pairs because of dual channel. So you get 8 gigabytes, which is 4 and 4. You get 16 gigabytes, which is 6, 8, and 8. You have 32 gigabytes, which is 16 and 16. You have 64 gigabytes, which I believe is 32 and 32. Those are the available sizes usually. But at that point, do not go for the 32 by 32 unless you absolutely need to. But that's only 2 sticks of RAM you need because most motherboards are up to 64. But the newest ones go up to 128. That's up to you. Next part we're going to be talking about is graphics card. The graphics card is responsible for rendering pictures on screen in video games. For example, a GTX 1660. It just turns out that my new computer that's coming up is going to be a 1660. So that puppy is going to run Fortnite or whatever. But the other purpose of a graphics card is to do video editing, like multitask, big boy task. Video editing is one of my specialties. And you need a very good graphics card in order to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have bad video. And you do not want that, especially for VR chat content. Very important that you have a very good graphics card. So, the next part we're going to be talking about is the fans. Now, the fans are responsible, the processor, I would say. The processor, which is your brain. Which is the brain of the computer. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Because the processor is responsible for everything a motherboard does with the computer. That's the brain. That's the core. That's the middle, whatever you want to call it. There are 2 types. You have Intel and you have AMD. Intel is responsible mostly for production side, like videos, Photoshop, and all that good stuff. AMD, however, on the other side of the coin, is a gamer friendly, also production friendly too, like AMD Ryzen 3, 5, 7, 9. AMD Ryzen 9 is the newest model. Now, the reason why that's important is because Intel and AMD are 2 rival brands in terms of the AMD, in terms of the business of processors. And you want to make sure you get the right one for your motherboard, number one. Number two, your business ethic for whatever you want for your computer. So your computer is going to be determined based on what processor you get too. If you get an AMD board, you better stick with Team AMD. That's me. I am Team AMD. Because my new computer is going to have AMD Ryzen 5. Then you have to think about, what am I using a computer for? Video games? Both Intel and AMD can run video games. But which one is more friendly toward gamer? AMD. Which is more friendly toward production? Intel. Which is more toward work and office? Intel. Mine is gamer specifically, because I also do video editing, and there's gonna be a lot of that very soon. So be very careful, be very mindful of your processor. Prices for a processor will be determined based on what you are getting. Normally, you will not get anything for less than 50. Therefore, the price range of a processor, depending on what type you get, is $100 to $350 and potentially more based on the generation. For example, AMD just released their recent generation, AMD Ryzen 9, and that puppy is going to go at least 200 plus. So be very careful when it comes to getting a processor. Now, the next part on our list is the power supply, and this is where everybody messes up. Believe it or not, the power supply is also very important. Obviously, you need power. But there is a reason why this is a mess up part. You cannot cheap out on a power supply. Here's why. It's in the box right now because I'm returning those because of the new computer having one. But that one right there that I bought is a 750 watt Thermaltake power supply with 80 plus rated bronze. You might be wondering, hey, it's just a bronze. What's the use? Why is that a thing? Because when it comes to power supplies, ladies and gentlemen, very important to understand that rating actually matters because of durability and because of longevity. The reason being is because those are rated, and those are rated by professionals. They look at the part to make sure that everything inside, when you unscrew the thing, is correct. Like the capacitor, the white thing inside of the thing, and all that good stuff that's in the wiring. Don't ask me about electrical engineering. I'm not into that stuff. But I do know a little bit of an inside because I watched videos on this material before doing this video. So, power supply. Now, 80 rated is very good. 80 bronze is good. 80 silver is better. 80 gold is better. And 80 platinum if you can get one. Here's the thing about power supplies. Your wattage is important because make sure you look at PCPartPicker.com. Look for all your parts, then add your power supply. The amount of wattage that is supported for the motherboard must add up over the power supply amount. No, excuse me, under the power supply amount based on the power supply you get. If the power supply, like for example 500 watts, is going to be less than the amount of component wattage, that's not good. You do not want under. If the power supply wattage supply is greater than the amount of supply of the components, then you're good. The reason being is you want to overcompensate for the power. And the reason for that is because if the power supply is less than the amount of the supply generated by the components, then you're going to get a short, or you're going to get even worse. And you do not want that. It's underpowered. This is the only case where overpowered equals good power. You do not want to go under because you're going to get a short. The only reason why my thing burned out was because I had that computer for 5 years plus, and power supplies would go through lifetime. They have a lifetime expectancy. 5 years is a long time, and that power supply went through a lot for video editing, and I am thankful for that power supply. But it was time to move on, and it burned out. It's going to happen, but the thing you do not want to happen is you have a power supply that you buy and it's underpowered and then it burns out quickly because you didn't supply enough power. That's what you do not want. What happened to me was a burnout because of long age. A power supply usually runs 5+ years. And if you make it to your 5th year, congratulations. That's a very good power supply you have there. Okay, it's going to burn out eventually. You just don't want it to go underpowered and burn out right away. That's why you never cheap out on power supplies. Also, another thing you need to understand about power supplies cheaping, don't cheap out. If you buy a cheap power supply, besides the wattage and besides the rating, there is a good chance that you're going to buy a power supply that is not only not rated, but not approved. For example, third party. Third party power supplies are very, very notorious for being bad and burning out. Very notorious. And also another thing, they might be deceptive. For example, if the thing says 500 watts, but you look your research in terms of the actual brand and what they offer, if they are deceptive, don't buy it. It's better to go for a trusted brand like Thermaltake or Corsair than going for a third party no name. Because you never know what they put inside of the capacitor. You never know what capacitor they put inside of the power supply. That's why you never cheap out on Mr. Power Supply. So Mr. Power Supply, you gotta go all in some cases. And lastly, the last part is hard drive storage. And there's two ways you can go around this. There's the SSD type, which is the blue squared kind of mini guy. And then there's the hard drive boy, like from Toshiba, the big box, the big rectangle. Both are good for storage. You need those data cables that come with your motherboard to play with that. And usually you want to go, if you're a gamer, 3,200 gigabytes, also known as 3 terabytes. Because games nowadays are at least 100 gigabytes to download. And that can run out quickly here if you buy stock. So make sure you go at least 3 terabytes. Do not go 6. That's too much for you. Go 3. That's like the minimum. Okay. Other parts that you need to understand. By the way, the power supplies go from $50 on the low end to $200 on the high end. But I would suggest look for a power supply $100 to $300. It's expensive, but remember, like I just said, don't cheap out. You might get something that you don't like. For storage with the hard drive, I would say $50 to $100. It's a big part, yes, but you gotta go for 3 terabytes or more. At that point, just remember, just make sure your motherboard supports everything. So that's the crucial elements of the computer. Let's go over to mini parts, and that is the fans and RGB. Fans are actually an essential part. With your processor, you actually get one for free. It comes with it. The purpose of the fan is to cool down your system, because you want to make sure when you're running good game, big boy games like the Call of Duty, your graphics card is being cooled down. The graphics card is responsible for rendering images on the screen. And therefore, you want to have a good graphics card, but you also want to have a good processor and a good fan to cool down Mr. Graphics card. And Mr. Graphics card is cooled down, he is very happy. But if Mr. Graphics card is too hot, he is very sad. And if he's very sad, you get laggy. And in very rare cases, it burns out too. So you want to have a good fan. So Mr. Fan is going to help Mr. Graphics card. They are best friends. Make sure you treat them as best friends. Other things, you can also have a side fan. And most cases actually have a side fan for you. And you can buy more fans if you wish. It is not required, but you do need some cooling effects. The next part on our list for like extra is RGB. Like those weird $2,000 setups. That is just for style. Don't go for RGB stuff unless it comes with it right away. So, fans cost around $25 to $50, etc. Okay, let's talk about how much is a DIY build. And this will be determined based on number one, your processor, number two, your motherboard, number three, your power supply. At most, at minimum, I believe I built the system with my dad, $1,200 plus upgrades, which would give it $1,500, which is not bad for 7 years. However, the minimum for a budget build for the year of 2023 heading into 2024 is $1,400 minimum for a DIY. And that is because the market for parts is so wild that you have to watch it every day. It's like the stock market for parts. You watch it every day, up and down, up and down, and up and down, until you find the perfect day to get your computer, to build your own case and everything. Okay? So the absolute minimum is $1,400, and the absolute max is $2,200 for a budget build. But once you go into the whole, oh, I gotta get that new 3090 or the 3870, whatever, then we're talking about wild numbers. The minimum for that type of build is $2,700 to $7,000. Easy. So now I want to go into the other route. The route that I'm about to journey into. And that is the pre-built route. So what exactly is a pre-built route? Well, it's everything I just talked about. The storage and everything. The only exception is you don't build it yourself. They build it for you. It's pre-built. It's ready to go from the rip. Now, where can you buy these pre-built routes? Well, the one I'm getting is from Walmart. Easy. Walmart, Amazon, and Best Buy. I would suggest, if you're going pre-built route, Walmart and Best Buy. Do not, absolutely do not go Amazon unless it's really last resort. Okay? You never know what you can get on Amazon. But if you really have to, you gotta go. Okay? So, Walmart and Best Buy are known for electronics. I remember going to Best Buy, and that's where I buy my video games. So, if the only other store that I would also recommend is Micro Center, but I don't think we have one here in LA. But Micro Center is basically GameStop for computers. All the graphics card you need, all the things you need, go over there to Micro Center. If you do not have one, go to Walmart. If you do not have a Walmart, go to Best Buy. They have pre-builts for you everywhere. And what's better is you have an expert in there. So what to look for in a pre-built? Read the fine details before you buy the thing. The one I have, the one that I'm going to get this time around, is an AMD Ryzen 5 GTX 1660 graphics card, which is an upgrade from what I have already. RAM is 16 gigabytes, but I can just add whatever I have. And then I have I believe a 500 GB memory. I can have my own. Thank you for the hard drive. I already have my own hard drive. Thank you very much. And then all the other things that comes with it. The computer I'm getting is a huge upgrade from what I already have. However, again, look at the fine details. AMD, Intel, memory, 16, 32. What do you want? Windows 10 or 11? 11 in my case. Storage 500 GB. I have my own. I have my own hard drive. I can just plop it in there. There, done. Other stuff. The other stuff. The graphics card, 1660 versus 1080 Ti. 1660 wins. Read the fine details. Don't just buy a computer for the sake of buying a computer without reading the fine details on Amazon.com or Walmart.com. Especially for gamers. Gamers love those lights. I am telling you now, gamers love lights. But do they read the fine details? You have to read the fine details. How much do pre-builts cost? Pre-built, on the low end of things, $300. On the high end of things, $3,000. Now, it's expensive, obviously. But sometimes they have sales. Rather than looking for parts individually, the first three parts are already over $300. That's already one pre-built PC. Some of the parts you need to buy are expensive to the point where, like 5 parts is already one pre-built gaming PC. The gaming PC start at $500. Okay, that's already 5 parts of your computer, like I mentioned earlier. So, here's the deal: pre-built or build yourself. What's the better option? If you're into like learning how to build a computer, want to do it yourself, and by the way, building your computer is actually a business. I learned about this. Linus Tech Tips. You can actually build computers for somebody, and they will pay you for it. That's a business. That's a legit business. You just have to let them know. Okay? You just have to let them know. Talk about the computer parts you're putting in. Talk about what they want, what you suggested, and talking about your expertise. That's a legit business, computer building. Now, that's if you want to get into the whole this part is better than this part because of this thing, or this RAM stick is better than that RAM stick because of that thing. That's up to you. If you go for that route, though, be ready to spend at least $1,000. If you're going the pre-built route, though, yes, it's cheaper by a lot, but you have to remember, you also have to look inside of the details. What do they have inside of the computer that you want? And can you upgrade later down the line? Most of the time, yes. You can upgrade later down the line. Some of them are more future-proof than others. So if I was you, you want to know the know-how of building a computer, go the DIY route, even if it's expensive. If you're into the business of give me my computer now, I want it working correctly, and then I'll study it later, go the pre-built route. Okay? The best sites to learn about the computer parts, PC Part Picker. And the sites to get into like pre-built, you want to go for Best Buy, Amazon, Micro Center, or it doesn't, or eBay. The eBay is like your last option though. Okay, that's today's lesson. Tomorrow we're going into more of computer builds. Like we're gonna be talking about more of. Let's talk about why computer building is a business. That's for tomorrow. Enjoy, live life to the fullest, and get your computer game on.